My husband sent flowers to my affair partner's office. Not anonymously, not as a joke, not as revenge. The card was signed with his full name. And somehow that was the moment I realized my marriage was over. Not when the affair started, not when I got caught, not even when the divorce papers arrived. It was the flowers. Because flowers are supposed to celebrate something, and what my husband was celebrating terrified me. The affair had been going on for almost 9 months. His name was Ryan. He worked in commercial real estate. We met during a networking event hosted by one of my clients. The attraction was immediate. At least that's what I told myself later. The truth is usually less romantic. The truth was that I liked the attention. Ryan was charming, confident, funny. He made me feel interesting again. Important. Desired. All the things I should have been talking to my husband about instead of searching for somewhere else. But that's not what I did. Instead, I built a second life. One lie at a time. For months, I convinced myself I was managing everything perfectly. My marriage, my children, my career, my affair. I wasn't. Nobody is. Eventually, the cracks always show. The person who noticed first was Noah. Of course it was. He noticed the late-night texting, the locked phone, the sudden gym membership, the business lunches that seemed to multiply every week, the distance, the distraction, the guilt. Looking back, I think he knew long before I admitted it to myself. But Noah never confronted me. Not immediately. He watched, waited, observed. The silence gave me confidence, which turned out to be a mistake, because silence isn't always ignorance. Sometimes it's preparation. One Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was sitting at my desk when Ryan called. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. He sounded confused. Actually confused, not angry, not upset. Confused. "Did you tell your husband about me?" My stomach dropped. Every possible disaster flashed through my mind. No. There was a long pause. Then Ryan said, "Then why did he send me flowers?" For several seconds, I couldn't speak. I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "What?" "Flowers." Another pause. "To my office." The room tilted. "What are you talking about?" Ryan sighed. "I just received a huge arrangement." I stood up so quickly my chair nearly tipped over. "What did the card say?" Silence. Then Ryan read it. "Congratulations. I hope she was worth it." Noah, I felt physically sick. Not because the message was cruel, because it wasn't. It was calm. Far too calm. The kind of calm that comes after a decision has already been made. Ryan laughed nervously. "I assume that's your husband." I couldn't answer, because deep down I already understood. Noah knew, and he'd probably known for a while. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I barely worked, barely spoke, barely thought. Every minute felt longer than the last. When I arrived home that evening, Noah was grilling dinner in the backyard, like any other Tuesday. Like he hadn't just detonated my entire secret life with a bouquet of flowers. I stood there watching him, trying to understand, trying to predict what came next. Finally, I spoke. "You sent Ryan flowers." Noah looked up. "Yep." Just yep, nothing else. I stared at him, waiting for anger, waiting for accusations, waiting for anything. Instead, he flipped a burger. Did he like them? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Almost. "What is wrong with you?" Noah smiled sadly. "Probably a lot of things." Then he looked back at the grill. The conversation ended there. Or at least I thought it did. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, Noah sat across from me at the dining room table. The same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, discussed finances, planned vacations, built a life. Then he quietly said, "I know about Ryan." No denial came. No excuses, no lies. I was simply too tired, too exhausted, too exposed. So I nodded, and for the first time in months, I told the truth. The conversation lasted hours, longer than I expected, shorter than it should have. At one point, I finally asked the question, "Why the flowers?" Noah smiled, not happily, just sadly. Then he answered, "Because I wanted him to know." I frowned. "Know what?" His reply came immediately, "That he won." The words hit harder than shouting ever could, because there was no anger behind them, only resignation. I shook my head. "That's not what happened." Noah laughed softly. "Claire." The way he said my name made me stop talking. Then he continued, "You don't spend 9 months choosing someone unless you've already made your decision." The room became very quiet. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend myself, wanted to explain. Instead, I stayed silent, because part of me knew he was right. The flowers weren't revenge. They were acknowledgement. A surrender notice delivered in a vase. The divorce process started 2 months later. Ryan and I officially became a couple shortly afterward. Everyone assumed we'd live happily ever after. That's how these stories are supposed to work, right? Wrong. The relationship lasted 13 months, just over a year. Then it collapsed under the weight of reality. No secrecy, no excitement, no fantasy. And just two flawed people trying to build something from wreckage. It didn't work. Most of the time, affairs don't end marriages because someone finds their soulmate. They end marriages because people stop doing the work required to maintain one. That truth took me years to understand. Years later, Noah and I attended our daughter's college graduation. We sat together, talked comfortably, the way divorced parents sometimes learn to do. At one point, I finally asked about the flowers again. The question had never completely left me. "Did you really mean it?" Noah looked confused. "The card." He smiled immediately, then nodded. "Yes." I looked away, embarrassed, even after all those years. Then Noah surprised me. I wasn't congratulating him. I frowned. "What?" He laughed softly. I was congratulating myself. Now I was completely confused. For what? His answer arrived without hesitation. For finally accepting reality. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Then he added, "The flowers weren't for Ryan." "What do you mean?" Noah smiled. "They were for me." I stared at him, waiting. Then he explained. And that was the day I stopped fighting for someone who didn't want to stay. The words settled heavily between us. Not cruel, not bitter, just true. The graduation ceremony eventually started. The conversation ended. But Noah's explanation stayed with me, because for years I'd assumed the flowers were a message to Ryan. They weren't. They were a message to himself. A line in the sand. A moment of acceptance. A decision to stop competing. To stop hoping. To stop pretending. People often think the biggest moment in an affair is getting caught. It isn't. The biggest moment is when someone finally accepts the truth. For Noah, that moment arrived in a flower shop. For me, it arrived much later. Years later. When I finally understood that the bouquet wasn't an act of revenge. It was the quiet funeral of a marriage that had already died. And the card wasn't written for my affair partner. It was written for the man who finally found the strength to let me go.